I went to Royal High School, went to UC Irvine for college. I work at Fitbit right now. I've been here for about 2 years. And I'm the US benefits manager for Fitbit. So I'll talk a little bit more about how I got there later.
And I guess I'm last. Hi, everyone. I'm Zach Musgrave. I did not grow up in SoCal. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so not from California, just got here as soon as I could. I did my bachelor's at Clemson University in South Carolina, mostly known for football. This year was kind of a heartbreaker for us in the national championship game. After Clemson, I attended the University of Michigan, where I got my master's degree in computer science. And from there, I joined Yelp initially as a software engineer, and now as an engineering manager. So I manage one of the security teams at Yelp. We're responsible for data security and privacy, and keeping Yelp's users safe from everybody who's trying to exploit them and get a hold of their data. And been with Yelp 7 years now, so I'm friends with most of this crew here. So it's nice to be here.
Awesome, thank you for the introduction. So I'm going to ask you just general questions that the students prepared. And at any point, any of you guys could kind of take charge and go for it. Or if there's awkward silence, I'll just select one of you guys. But the first question is from Lourdes Huerta. She wanted to ask, so actually, let me just preface this. So a lot of them, obviously, they're seniors and they're going to, they've enlisted, apply to colleges with a general major, but obviously they're kind of still trying to figure things out. Going into college, was this the career that you're in right now? Was that what you wanted to do, or did it change along the way? And how did it change?
Who wants to start? Or I can start. So when I was in college, I changed careers several times, or majors actually. I started out as a computer science major, changed into computer information systems, then changed into business because I just wanted to be in that kind of field. I wasn't really 100% sure what I wanted to do, but I started interning at this company. I was an HR assistant, so I was already in HR. I did several different things from like benefit to compensation to recruiting, a lot of different aspects. And as I got closer to like my graduation date, I still didn't know what I wanted to do, to be completely honest. But I started applying to places and just doing research on the HR field. And there's many different branches to HR. As I mentioned, Jeannie's in benefits, so she does one branch of it. Me and Danny, we do recruiting. It's another aspect of it. And I wanted to try to find a domain where I felt that might be interesting to me. And recruiting seemed interesting because you get to talk to a lot of different people. It's very interesting. Every day is a little bit different. And you're helping people find jobs, essentially. And that was kind of fun for me. And I interviewed at a few places and didn't really get the role I wanted, early on. But I was persistent and just kept driving at it. I had an unpaid internship for about a year, so I grinded that first year, also working full time at the same exact time with doing that. And then randomly, actually, I met someone that was a recruiter at Google. And he knew I was in HR, and he knew that, I wanted to kind of get in that field. So he basically, said, give me your resume, let's see what happens. So I gave it to him, not even thinking anything of it, because, Google, coming from a small town like me, it just felt like too out there, where I would never even imagine working with those kind of people. But a month or two later, they actually emailed me back, asking if I wanted to interview. I was like, what do I have to lose, right? So I did it, and 2 weeks later I moved up, and I've been there ever since, or I've been in the Bay Area ever since, basically. So started my career in recruiting at Google for 2 years, made the transition to Facebook, and I've been there ever since. That's kind of my journey.
I can start next if you don't mind. I had no idea what I was going to do. I was super into biology. I loved science. Went to college at UC Irvine. Definitely was not like reaching my GPA that I wanted in bio. So had to switch out in order to keep my GPA at a level where I could actually stay at UC Irvine. So I just switched to social ecology. Who knows what that was? I was pretty lost at that point. Then I got into legal, like law. I thought I wanted to be a paralegal. Really liked learning about law and like different regulations that get passed. Interned at a lawyer's office, hated it. So was like, okay, law is not for me. And then part-time job at an insurance brokerage, which kind of kickstarted where I am today, because benefits is about providing insurance for our employees, whether it be being pet insurance, whether it be being life insurance, medical, dental. So that's kind of where I got my knowledge, and that's where I ended up. But in the beginning, no, I did not know where I was going to go. So.
Yeah, I can follow up there. So I so Pomona College is like a liberal arts college. So it's a little bit different from going to like a UCLA or somewhere where your major like kind of dictates more of like what classes you take, and it's a little bit more rigid at those schools. Whereas at Pomona, it was very much like encouraged for us to explore a bunch of different areas and majors. So I got to take classes in like a wide variety of like topics and subjects. So I ended up majoring in media studies and Spanish, which, you know, have like nothing to do with what I actually do now. So one thing that I think would have been great to hear when I was making these decisions as a senior or even in college was just knowing that your major doesn't necessarily have to dictate like what you're gonna do for the rest of your life. That's really important. For me, college was like a lot of exploring and just trying to learn and absorb as much as possible and like a wide variety of topics, which is one of the reasons why I was majoring in media studies, because I got to study like film and TV and internet and like all the media that we consume from like all different types of angles, like race, gender, class, all those things. And I also got to take classes in like math and science, and I didn't feel limited in that sense. After college, I ended up, I wanted to go to law school as well. But at first I wanted to get like a job in that kind of space. So I like for sure knew what I was getting into before making the commitment of applying to law schools, and especially like the financial commitment. So I did that for like 2 or 3 years, decided law school was not for me, and then spent some time like soul searching and kind of figuring out what was going to be next. And that kind of led me to recruiting. I knew that I liked working with people, and I had been in a nonprofit space at the time, and I liked helping people. I knew a lot of people that worked in the recruiting space, and I was really passionate about diversity as well, especially like being in the Bay Area and kind of seeing how the tech space in general like affects who has access to these things. So that was kind of how I pivoted to looking at jobs in recruiting. And yeah, but as far as the majors go, just don't get like too hung up about it is what I would say.
Kind of jealous of the media studies background, because I think that if my college had had that program, that's definitely what I would have done. So when I went into college, all I really knew was that I liked playing with computers. And this was a long time ago, but like, there was still the ability to like, go on the internet and like mess around with stuff and like, try to set up your own website or whatever, MySpace back in the days, pre-Facebook and all that. So I was like, well, I don't know what to do, and I guess I'll do computer science. Like, why not? Didn't really think it through. I didn't know anybody who worked with computers for a living. I didn't know any software engineers. Didn't have any of those. I come from a relatively small town, like 10,000 people. So anyway, yeah, I went to college and immediately fell in love with radio broadcasting, of all things. My college had an FM station that took student DJs, and I ended up having a radio show for a long time. And oh man, if I could do that for a living, I would do that for a living, no question. But it turns out that that's a really challenging field, and it's difficult to break into. And to be perfectly honest with you, the pay is not great. So okay, I like solving problems, and I don't have any role models. So like, let's take the computer thing and just try to grind on it and run with it. But I didn't know any software engineers. So how do you do computers and not be a software engineer? Well, okay, I'll be a professor, he said, not knowing what was going to happen. So if you want to be a professor, you have to go to graduate school. So I went to graduate school, and that was a mistake, honestly. It sucked the life out of me. It was not just incredibly hard, but it was very mentally taxing, and I did not have a great time and would not recommend. That's my experience, of course. Other people I know had a really good time, but that was me. So, it came time to decide whether I was going to take the qualifying exam for the PhD, which is like how you sort of become a PhD candidate. And my advisor said, like, hey, look, we know you can do this, but like, do you really want to do this? And I said, I'll take Christmas break and think about it. Came back after that, and I said, to heck with all of this and to heck with all of you, I am getting a job. And they said, oh, well, no one will hire you. It's January, and the job fair in colleges is usually in September. So I was like, I missed the boat on the main job fair. And I said, well, I guess we'll find out. And, went and, sort of pounded the pavement and just like called in every favor I had from every person I had ever met who had any sort of in at a company, who had any insight into the process. And anyway, it worked out. I ended up at Yelp just as a software engineer with no internship, no experience, and it ended up being a good place to be. So I started out doing what we call infrastructure, which I think I can sum up as, it's relatively straightforward to build Yelp or Facebook or Google to be used by 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people. It gets a lot more challenging to build it when it's used by like 100 million people or however many. So that ended up becoming my specialty. But I realized that it's still like, I love solving problems, and programming is one way to solve problems. It's really fulfilling to be able to build a tool that makes your colleagues' lives easier, better, faster. Just like, imagine anytime you've helped somebody, anytime that you've like shown somebody how to do something, you enjoy that sort of thing. That's the fulfillment that I get from using software to solve problems. But what I really enjoy is enabling people rather than just enabling computers, because computers are boring, people are really interesting. So I started looking at how to get into a management role. And I had a really great mentor who worked with me, and eventually an opportunity came up in the security space. Me having, once again, no security background, kind of had to learn on the job. But I've been doing that for like the past year, and I think I finally, at about age 30, finally found my calling. So sometimes it takes a little while to get there. Sometimes you start off close, sometimes you start off far away, but you'll get there eventually.
Thank you for those wonderful responses. Let's jump into another question. So, a lot of you guys work in HR, and even for Zach, you are a engineering manager. So you guys deal with a lot of people. All of you guys been through a lot of job interviews yourself. A lot of these students are either entering their first jobs or thinking about, what internships they want in the future, what jobs they want in the future. What's your recommendation for students about how to approach job interviews, how to find jobs, how to be in those situations and environments, especially for the first few times?
Oh, I can start. So I had these terrible advisors in grad school, but they actually did say a couple good things, and this is the one that I tell everybody who works with me. There are exactly 3 things that matter: intelligence, experience, motivation. Those are the only 3. So intelligence, you're sitting here right now. You are smart enough. No matter what anyone ever tells you, you are smart enough, and you have to believe in that. And sometimes it's really hard to believe in that, but you are plenty smart enough. Then there's experience. You don't have any. You're in high school. That's okay. If you're applying for stuff like, for internships, for summer gigs, for whatever, like it's, people understand, like how do you have 10 years of experience when you're like 18 years old, right? And the third thing, motivation, that's where you differentiate yourself. So like I have said 1,000 times, and it's reflected in the interviews that I conduct, where it's like, interviewing for security engineering, I'll take people who have a passion for security engineering way before I'll take people who have like really specific knowledge. They always do better. They're more motivated. It's like, show me that this is what you want to do. It's not just, I want a fancy tech job. It's not just, I want to work at Yelp. It's, I want to do security, man. If you can convince me of that, and you have like a baseline set of skills, like that goes a really long way.
To add to that, I think for me, especially when I was transitioning like careers and industries, one thing that I realized was that just like reaching out to those personal connections and just putting yourself out there, trying to meet people, network, going to events, that really makes a really big difference. So trying to build your network, don't hesitate to ask someone for help. You always want to be conscious of like, what you're asking of someone else, but don't hesitate to reach out to someone that could connect you with an opportunity. The worst thing that they will do is say no, right? And then you can just, keep looking, keep reaching out to your network. Because all it takes is just one person saying yes and being willing to help you out or connect you with someone that they might know. So really leveraging like your connections and being curious, like asking people about their own experiences, kind of like, what we're doing right now, but just being open to doing that with just people that like your relatives or friends, or just someone that you might know that could be in a career space that you hadn't even thought about before. And yeah, that would be my recommendation, just using your networks and personal connections.
Yeah, I think a big piece about like finding a new job or just getting your career started is, like Danny said, tapping into your network, building relationships, knowing people that are in the right places, and just having an idea of what you feel passionate about. That plays a big factor. And like Zach said, he would rather hire someone that has passion for whatever he's hiring for. And 9 out of 10 times, they're going to do a lot better than someone that has the knowledge, because they have that push, that hustle, and they want it more. You want someone that wants it bad. You don't want someone that can get by because they have the certain skills. I think most times if you have the hustle and the drive, you're going to find a way to get there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and everybody's used Tinder, right? How do you find a date? You have to show them how unique you are, show them how genuine you are. I used to work in the insurance industry where you have to cover up your tattoos. I have tattoos, but in the tech world, everyone is unique. You have someone with blue hair, someone who has like a full sleeve, but it's about breaking those, stereotypes. and showing them that you can do the work. So I think don't be afraid to show that you don't have the experience, show that you have the eagerness to learn. That's always a big thing when I'm interviewing someone, is that, okay, you don't know, you haven't worked on this, but will you be willing to learn? And are you excited to learn about it?
Also, I think it's important to remember that like even though you might not have a ton of experience, like there's value in your perspective and like how you yourself have been able to navigate like problems and situations in your life that could can be a great addition to like a team, or just help a team like look at a problem in a different way. So just because you don't have the actual like resume experience doesn't mean that you don't have like value and something to add.
Awesome, great responses. So as spoken, they don't have too much experience yet with companies and differences between it, but in your experiences, what are the benefits and how do working at a tech company, and how do tech companies differ than like a different company that you've been at?
I used to work at the bank. I used to work at Bank of America at a call center. So basically when your parents or whoever gets a credit card and you have a declined transaction, they call someone to complain to. That's basically me. So I did that for 3.5 years, and that was very emotionally draining because I took like 80 plus calls from random people every single day. And I would say the majority of people that called in weren't particularly happy to speak to me. So it built a lot of my thick skin and patience. But I think that, what you need to know is that, like, just having that hustle and just kind of like understanding about what it takes to take the next step and what you can kind of, gain from that knowledge is very useful.
I came from a nonprofit, it was like a legal aid nonprofit, so completely different environment than working at Facebook. So it was, a really small organization, and it was like me, my manager, and like one development person. And so it was an experience that taught me a lot about just problem solving on your own, and like being very resourceful, because you don't have a ton of resources or people to help you out. You kind of have to navigate each situation on your own, and just problem solve as quickly and as best as possible, especially because I was dealing with clients in stressful like legal situations, people requesting child support or spousal support, going through divorces, bankruptcies, things like that. So it taught me a lot about how to be like empathetic and help people through like sticky situations, while at the same time like having to be very organized and knowing what my limitations were, and that I think was super helpful in giving me the skills that I needed to be in a job like I am now. Like in a lot of ways, what I do now is easier in some aspects, because I feel like I actually have the resources and help that I need to do my job. And just, being at a place like Facebook, it's nice to have a bigger team who can support you through, and who's actually doing the same job that you are, versus being in like a role where you have to figure everything out for yourself. And obviously there's a very big difference in like how quickly things change. Like in the tech industry, things are always changing. You have to adapt to new priorities. Whereas in the legal space, like things move very slow and they're very resistant to change. So that was something that I kind of had to adapt to as well.
One thing I didn't answer too is that, like, when I worked at the bank, I was kind of tied down to a cord, like a pulling cord. So I had to be at my desk from 9 to 5, and my manager always knew where I was. Whereas in tech, it's very flexible. There's no real hard start. There's no real hard stop. As long as you get your work done, it's all good for the most part. You know, as long as you're not a slacker, you can have the flexibility of working from a different office or working from home or something like that. Like what we're doing now, you know, everyone's working from home. It's not that uncommon for us, like me, Zach, Jeannie, and Danny, to do that because we have the flexibility of working remotely whenever we need to. So having the flexibility is great. Also being surrounded by like great managers and leaders is an awesome thing too. One big difference about like working at Facebook compared to like Bank of America is that I don't think a lot of the managers really cared about my growth. They more cared about their paycheck. Whereas at Facebook, they want to see me succeed and they want to see what they can do to help me get to the next level.
Yep. I think Tony summed it up pretty well there. One of the things that happens in tech companies and some others with like a more modern philosophy is that like it's the way that I look at it is it's like it's a small world out there, and tech is especially a really small place. So like you have to have empathy for people and to build a good working relationship with them, because hey, even if like somebody quits their job and they go and work somewhere else, it's like you may see them down the road 3 companies later. That kind of thing happens all the time. My metric for how I think about my team, like how do I know I'm being successful? It is if they leave or if I leave and we get to work together again, we give each other a hug. And it's like, I'm so glad to see you. It's been a while. And I think that overall, like we're pretty successful in that. So like, you know, one of the things that's happening right now, like everybody's lives are impacted, and it's like, you know, I don't have kids. I don't really have people depending on me. So like, you know, that's hard enough. But like, you know, if you're doing childcare, if you're caring for like an elderly relative, it's like there are demands on your time that just cannot be met like with a normal 9-to-5 working schedule. So the guidance from the company and the guidance from me is do what you got to do. Like take care of your people. You cannot take care of anybody else before you take care of your own. And that, you know, extreme amount of empathy and flexibility, it's like, you know, I have colleagues who, you know, they got to get their kids to bed. So they're not online like in the later part of the afternoon because they're hanging out with their family and taking care of that. And like maybe they'll hop back on at 7 or 8, do a little bit of work. Maybe they're on reduced hours, you know, like that's fine. Like, you know, we do what we have to do, and we try our best to take care of our own. You have to contribute, but you know, the company has to keep an eye on like your growth, and we do try to make that happen.
Yeah, and in the world of tech, right, there's so many new companies that are popping up in our generation. I never knew that I would be able to work for a fitness company. I grew up you know, loving sports, was in tennis, track, softball, swim. You know, if that's your passion, like you can absolutely work in tech for a fitness company. There's tons out there. Never knew that I would work for a company where there would be a treadmill desk where you can work and walk. So really cool atmosphere, and you get to work with people from all over the world, not just the US.
Awesome. Okay, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I have one last question for everyone. Not necessarily about your jobs, but kind of about managing and getting through college. So a lot of them are entering college in the fall. What recommendation, advice, or would you give to them to kind of maximize their time while they're in college?
Meet people. Be nice to them, you know, be collaborative in group projects. Like Zach said, the world's pretty small, and you may or may not come across that person again. And if they were maybe starting their own company, would they hire you? You know what I mean? I've met people in the Bay Area that have done their own thing, and they've offered me like you know, you're a cool person. Do you want to be on my team, etc., etc. But be a hard worker. Make most of your time. Meet people. Be kind to them. And you know, networking is a powerful thing. And I think it can take you to a lot of different places.
Yeah, I would say like the transition period from high school to college, and that like first semester, just that first year in general, can be really, really challenging. And, you know, whether if you're, maybe some of you might be going to somewhere that's not as close to home, and kind of adapting to that, it can be very difficult at first. And just know that like that first year is going to be the most challenging, and to persevere. And if you are, you know, feeling alone, like reach out to other people that are around you, because they're most likely feeling the same things. Definitely lean on, you know, your friends and family back home as well. But I know that was something challenging. Also, like being in a classroom setting in college can look very different from your high school. So just remembering that, like, to speak up and be willing to share your thoughts. Some of these classrooms might look very different from, you know, what you're used to. Like, I know that's how it was for me. I went to a high school that was like 90% Latino and Hispanic, and then I went to college and that was not the case whatsoever. So that was something that was like something difficult to kind of adjust to, and just growing into your own voice. And yeah, time management is the hardest part, but it's also the most important part in college, and making sure that you're prioritizing things as you would want your, you know, ideal self to do it. So yeah, good luck.
Yeah, I'll double down on the prioritization thing. So it's like, what homework do I do first? Oh, the one with the earliest deadline. Okay. Well, if you actually look at the math behind that, that's optimal. That's like the correct strategy, if you know how long the homework is going to take. And if you don't, and I promise you, you don't, none of us ever do, it's student syndrome, right? Procrastinate. You really have to be careful about managing your time to avoid falling into this trap. I think that at most colleges, the first year is like the most crucial thing, because there are classes that have like higher requirements to get into a certain major and things like that. And, you know, they make it hard. They make it hard on purpose, especially that first year. I think there are two reasons for that. One, to make sure that you're prepared for what comes next. But the main reason is, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want it? If you want to go do like this major or that major, like how bad do you want it? And, you know, if you really want to get good at calculus, do every problem in the book. That's what I know. It's like, it's just hours. It's just grind, keep grinding.
I think one thing I wanted to talk about too is that, like, you know, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and take your time. You know, when you're old like me, you know, you're gonna look back and 10 years later and be like, damn, I should have did that, should have did this, and you should have spent more time, you know, with your family, your friends, whatever the case may be. So even if you don't identify the appropriate major up front, it doesn't mean that you're behind, or anything like that. I have plenty of friends that started school late and they're pretty successful now. So it doesn't matter. Everyone has a different timeline of what they're trying to achieve. So go at your own pace, and yeah, you know, just do what you can.
Yep, agree with Tony entirely. I feel like there's going to be distractions. There's going to be parties, ooh, girls, boys. But, you know, if you keep your eye on the prize, you will get there. And I think that prioritization is really important, you know, to keep going forward and getting a job that you will be happy with. But like I said, like, there won't be, after graduation, you're not going to get the dream job, not many of us at least, but if you keep on pushing and keep on going for it, you will.
All right, so once again, I thank you for guys for coming and taking some time out of your dates. I know it's kind of a crazy, at least especially in your field right now, but we appreciate it. It's you did a good job today. And would you guys mind if I shared your email just in case anyone had any questions about for you guys?
Yeah, that
No,
works.
go ahead.
Awesome, cool. All right, so I know our class time ends at 12:50, but if you have, so I'm end the interview soon. But if you have any questions after that, you feel free to email any one of them. But for our guest speakers, I appreciate you guys, and I hope you guys have a safe rest of the week.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So everyone else, we have the post-interview discussion. But besides that, it's good to see everyone. See you guys next on Monday. We're going to have a presentation from Hennessy. But besides that, you just have one discussion post to do until then. And have a great spring break. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye, Todd.
Bye, Todd.
Bye, Todd.
Miss you.
Bye,
I
y'all.
love you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, y'all.
Stay safe.
Have a safe one.
Miss you, Todd.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Happy Easter.